Hey everyone, how's it going? Today I'd like to show you some new shoes I got, for the car of course. These wheels are the Apex SM10s, part of their flow-formed line, and it's a very clean 10-spoke design. This particular color is race silver. So in addition to, your regular Stagger setup, where you have a different width wheel on the front versus the rear, I'm going to be trying something a little bit different too, and I'm going to be actually trying a double staggered setup. So what that means is, in addition to the width difference front to rear, I'm also doing a diameter difference. So I have an 18 by 10 wheel in the front, and in the rear here I'm going to be running a 19 by 11. The offset of the front is 33 and the offset of this rear one is 44. And if you're asking where am I getting this crazy idea from, well, performance cars have actually been using this for a little while now, and in fact BMW has done it. So if you look at the M4 GTS or the M3 and M4 CS of the F8X generation, those came with a double stagger setup, except it was 19 front, 20-inch rear. And all of the current generation, the butt ugly G8X, M3, and M4s, those also have a double stagger setup. If we look at other brands, Porsche's been doing this a while, 20-inch front, 21 rears. Corvettes have been doing this a while, about the same sizes, I believe 1920 or 2021. Lamborghinis does it. So there's some merit. Now, it has been difficult to find a real technical explanation for exactly how this is working, but at least the hand-waving arguments I've seen, or boiled it down to the larger wheel gives a more desirable contact patch in the rear, and also makes the sidewall a little bit more stiff or loaded so that the rear end is more responsive. So one thing I was surprised to find on this set of wheels is this bead knurling, which is there to help, kind of bite into the tire a little bit more and prevent it from slipping or rotating around the wheel as you're, braking really hard, mainly on the track. You're not going to really see that on the street. My previous Apex SM10 set from a couple years ago, I don't remember it having this. And when I looked on Apex's site, on their blog, it said that around 2018 they started to introduce this on their Porsche wheels. So I guess it's made its way over to the BMW ones as well. I don't believe every Apex wheel has it, but at least these SM10s do. Looking at the inside face of the wheel, we can see a bunch of different information. So some things of note, right? At the top here, we have the load rating along with the production date. This one looks like May of 21. We have our JWL and VIA certifications. And also we have the size. So this one is 18 by 10 with a 33 offset. I'm not sure what this one over here is, but it could be either some, model code or also another certification. But anyways, let's go see how these fit on the M2. Okay, so here are the rear wheels mounted, and once again, this is an 11-inch wide wheel with an offset of 44, and this one just happens to be 19, but I mean 18 wouldn't really make a difference here. And I've got this mounted with no spacers. And at least for the outside face of the wheel, I know this will clear just fine. And the reason why I know that is my current set of track wheels for this car, which is a set of Bimmer World 18 inches. On the rear, I have a 10.5 with a 36 offset. And when you compare the 11 offset 44 to the 10.5 offset 36, this is actually 2 millimeters retracted in towards the car a little bit. So if my other wheel set works and doesn't have rubbing issues on the fender up there, then this one should fit on the outside as well. One thing I am a little bit concerned with though is how close this inner lip is here to this inner fender liner. And if you were to only look on the driver's side or left side of the vehicle, you wouldn't even think about this, because this liner is actually recessed towards the car a little bit more on that side. The reason why on the passenger side it protrudes more is because we can see we have these protrusions for the fuel pipe and things like that. So this is actually pretty close to the wheel. You can see I can't even get my finger in between this liner and the wheel. So I think it's somewhere around, let's say, the 3 or 4 millimeter range. So if you were to get a really fat tire on this, something where the section width is greater than the width of this wheel in total, you may have to worry about that rubbing on here a little bit. That said, we also have to remember that the wheel right now is at full droop, so it's hanging all the way down. And when this wheel is not hanging all the way down, it's going to be up a little bit. This main protrusion should actually be inside the diameter of the barrel of this wheel. And as the wheel, rim moves up higher up here, you can see this liner kind of recesses away, so it should give you some more clearance. So once I get a tire on this is one thing I'm going to have to check, is if, how likely am I to rub on this liner. Thankfully, you can see I'm pushing in this liner a little bit, so it's got some play. You can probably take a heat gun and mold it back if you absolutely have to, but this is just the one area in the rear to take a look at. Okay, so now we have the front wheel on, and this is an 18 by 10 with an offset of 33. If you have a stock, M2 competition, with the large brakes, you cannot fit this wheel because the barrel is not large enough, so you will need a 19-inch wheel instead of the 18. But you can still use the 10-inch wide width and the 33 offset. Now, one thing I do have on here is I have a Turner 5mm spacer. So that effectively changes the offset from 33 to 28, right? 33 minus 5 is 28. And the reason why you need that is if you don't have it, this inner lip will make contact with the front strut. It's very, very, very close, because even with the spacer here, you have about 4 to 5 millimeters of space. And if you're saying to yourself, well, that doesn't leave any room for the tire, because the sidewall of it, right, the section width might be a little bit larger. You're right. However, the front strut angles inwards away from the wheel, and so what that means is up here where the section width of the tire would be, there's more than that 4 or 5 millimeters clearance where the lip of the rim is. Because the strut is angled away, it's moving away from the wheel. So what about the outside face of the wheel now? Well, I know this is going to work for me because this 18 by 10 by 28 effective offset right now has the same offset as, once again, my Bimmer World TA5R track wheels, which are 18 by 9.5 inch wide, and the offset is 22. So the offset is exactly the same between that wheel and this one right now with the offset of 28, and I'm not getting any rubbing up here right now, so I know I shouldn't with this. That said, I do have a couple of modifications to this. I do have camber plates in the car, and I also have the SPL lower adjustable arms. Now, if you're on completely stock suspension, so no camber plates, no SPL adjustable arms, I think this could still work for you. And the reason why I say that is I ran the car with just the SPL arms for a number of times, no camber plates, stock top mounts, and so what that does is that actually pushes the bottom of the front of the wheel out to give you that camber. But it really, what it's doing is it's giving you less clearance than without those longer arms, because it's pushing the whole wheel out, right? It's making your track width wider. And at least on street driving, when I had that configuration, I had no issues whatsoever. I didn't have any rubbing. But I can't really say the same for when I was at the track. If you look at this, inner fender liner up here, you can see where all the rubber is, where my tires were rubbing against this on very heavy compression. So, I would say you've got to be a little bit careful. If you're only doing street driving, it's probably fine. If you're going to be taking to the track, though, then you may have to watch out for rubbing here. And this was with a 265 width tire. So I want to take some time to talk about these Turner 5mm spacers. And the thing that makes these spacers unique is that they have the hub extension on there. Now, this main hub, this is what supports the wheel, like most of the load, and the bolts, mainly clamp the wheel to the rotor face. So it's very, very important that this main hub maintains a lot of the load bearing, especially if you're going to be on track. Most spacers, especially if they're below 10 or 12 millimeters, they don't have this integrated hub extension. And the reason why they don't is that's the thickness of this integrated hub, this natural hub, these flanges on it. So what Turner has done is, since the F8X design has these notches cut out in it, this is something that the F2X, 3X cars hubs don't have. What Turner's done is, they've made a notched back design. So they have these connecting pieces that go between these notches in the hub, and that's what allows them to still have the hub extension even with a thin, 5mm spacer. So this is pretty unique on their end. I haven't seen any other company that does it, but quite frankly, they should be. This is the reason why I am very happy to be using these Turner spacers. Also, because we are, using a spacer and making things a little bit wider, you do have to use extended bolts. So the stock bolts are 27mm in length. That's the length of this, threaded section. So, obviously we need a 5mm longer one. So we would need something that's 32mm. I believe this one from Turner is 33. So, that's the appropriate size bolt for this spacer. So if you get spacers or whatever, add 27mm to the thickness of the spacer, and that's the length of the threaded part of the bolt that you need. Hey guys, so we have the new Apex SM10 with a Hankook RS4 in 305/30 R19 mounted on the car right now. Big thanks to Love Shop Auto in Fremont for helping me get these tires mounted and balanced today. And you can see I've got my jack underneath. And the reason why I've got my jack underneath is before, when we looked at it, there really wasn't that much clearance between that, inner fender liner and the rim of the wheel. But as we saw, if we jack up the wheel more toward natural or normal ride height, that the clearance actually becomes greater. So I've taken a look at it, with the tire on at full droop. And yeah, the sidewall of this tire is rubbing that inner fender liner. But let's see what happens if there's enough clearance now that the wheel is more towards the normal ride height. Alright, so now we are under the car and looking at that gap between the inner sidewall and the various fenders and whatnot, fender liners, and you can see we actually have a decent amount of space. Alright, now we're taking an underside look at the front wheel, and if you recall, we have the Turner 5mm spacer here, and you can clearly see there is plenty of clearance between the wheel and the strut. So, no issues here. Alright, we're coming up on a good compression dip here, so we'll see how much this wheel compresses and if I get any rubbing or not. See if we can hit it before I run into the back of these guys. There we go. And compress. Fairly uneventful, but I guess that's a good thing. Okay, so car is up in the air. I've taken the rear wheel off so that we can check to see if there was any rubbing over the past, 100 miles or so that I've had the 11-inch wide wheel with 305 tire on. From the GoPro footage on the outside of the car, we could see that the outside didn't have a rubbing issue. So now let's take a look at the inside and see if there was any rubbing there. So looking on the back side of the wheel well, you can see there's a pretty uniform layer of filth all on the liner. So I really don't think we've got any rubbing going on in the back here. As we pivot over to the front, there's a couple areas that look a little interesting to me. And so let's start at the one in the forwardmost position first. So that is going to be this mark here. And you can see there's clearly some scraping of the plastic. However, I don't think this is from the wheel or tire combination. And the reason why is, if you look at how level that scraping is, how parallel to the ground it is, it's incredibly even. And this does not follow the rotating arc of the wheel or tire. So I don't think it's that. And also I checked on the driver's side as well, and this mark is absent over there. So I think that's from something else, but there are two spots where I do think the tire is rubbing. And the first one, let's just look up here, right here. Obviously it's a lot cleaner. It looks like something's been rubbed there because the regular filth on the wheel well liner is not there. And it does look like rubber. So I think, as this tire is compressing, it is rubbing that liner a bit. It's not too heavy though, because, well, let's see if we can get this in focus here. As you can see, you can still kind of see the surface texture of the plastic of the liner. So once again, I don't think it's too heavy. And also, this is not going to be on the driver's side or the left side. liner, because this protrusion right here, this is protruding because of the fuel tube area, and so the driver's side is further recessed, and you can see I can push this in a decent amount and we're not hitting anything it's protecting behind. So even if this were to wear down a bit more, it's not going to cause an issue. The second area is just below that right here, and once again, we zoom in, it looks a little bit cleaner. And what I'm talking about is this lower edge right here, and it once again does look like something has been rubbing against it a little bit, and it does kind of follow the arc of the wheel or tire. But this one, since it is so low, I think what this is the tire rubbing as it goes into full droop. So as I put it on the lift, as I'm lowering it, the wheel is dropping down and then the tire's rubbing here a bit. So once again, I'm really not worried about that one either, because I've got at least a full finger width or depth of space behind it before I even start to touch anything behind it. So if that wears away a little bit, I don't really care. And once again, both of these spots on the left or driver's side of the car are not there, and this liner is further recessed, so you're not going to have this rubbing over there. Lastly, if we take a look at the inner top edge of the outside part of the liner, we can see that there is no signs of rubbing under compression. So what that means is the outside, what the GoPro footage showed us before about the outside compressing, and the liner being able to, or the tire not coming into contact with the liner, that still holds true by inspection here. And our tabs in the back also shows no signs of rubbing. So I think we're pretty good in the rear. Aside from those two spots on the innermost edge of the liner, only on the passenger or right side, it looks like this 11-inch wide rear with 305 tire fits. And just for the record, looking at the 305 3019 RS4, looking at kind of this tread width area, so from about basically this first dot over here on the sidewall to over here, basically the main width between the shoulders, this is just a hair under 11 inches, so it literally is like 10 and 15/16. And then the overall section width, so going by the widest point of the sidewalls, looks to be right at 12 inches. So if you're looking at a different tire than I have, which most of you probably will, those are some reference points you can compare to.